This is the Behind the Line podcast, and this is Pacific Northwest Headline News for Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. Well, Governor Inslee on Saturday announced that the vaccine mandate for state employees and other pandemic restrictions will continue for now. Case numbers have been climbing again in some parts of the state, but hospitalization and fatality rates are not increasing at the same rates. Inslee maintained that Washington's approach to the pandemic has clearly been very successful. If we had the same death rate as, say, Mississippi, we would have had another 19,000 people lose their lives in Washington, Inslee told Seattle public radio station KUOW. Inslee said the vaccine mandate was just one part of a successful strategy, which also included masking rules and preventing crowding. Those three things we know unequivocally had a role in reducing deaths in our state. When asked when the restrictions would be lifted, Inslee answered, when it makes sense. With cases rising and new variants appearing, the restrictions will remain in place for now. Inslee was questioned about the constitutionality of his emergency orders and powers and his executive orders. He pointed to the dozens of times his decisions were challenged in state and federal courts and how judges appointed by both Republicans and Democrats have confirmed their constitutionality and that he had legitimate authority to make those decisions for the state during a global pandemic. This has not been some rogue executive running rampant like an elephant through the tall grass of our civil liberties, Inslee said. The legislature now has had 2 or 3 opportunities to rescind or contravene any of the actual rules or protocols that I have announced, and they have confirmed them. Isn't that true? There are 16 other states that currently have emergency orders in place. Inslee said Washington's mandates won't be lifted until it makes sense, that we can eliminate any requirement and not experience more death. So basically, never. Inslee also claimed that his restrictions have saved about 19,000 lives in Washington state during the interview. Not sure how he arrives at that number or where he gets that data from. I guess there's no point in electing officials in this state other than governor, because he's the one that's going to make all the decisions until the emergency powers are lifted. Way to go, representatives. And were you aware that Washington state has banned natural gas in all new commercial properties and residential projects with 4 stories or more? Yes, it's not just Seattle, it's the entire state. A bill to ban natural gas appliances in all new commercial construction sites had died in the legislature in 2021. But this spring, the Washington State Building Code Council passed a similar ban on all new commercial construction projects and some residential ones starting in July 2023. It's a fossil fuel and it emits greenhouse gas emissions, said Beth Doglio, a former state legislator and consultant for the Rocky Mountain Institute. Doglio testified in favor of the changes. She said eliminating natural gas from new buildings would make for safer properties and cleaner air. Instead of gas-powered furnaces and water heaters, builders would have to rely on electric heat pumps under the changes. The ban includes all new commercial properties and residential projects with 4 stories or more. Senator Linda Wilson, a Republican and non-voting member on the council, said the decision should have been up to legislatures, not council members appointed by Governor Jay Inslee, a Democrat. Yes, no kidding. These types of changes should not be up to appointed people without some kind of debate and vote. It's ridiculous. I'm very frustrated with the fact that it was a building code council that decided this, said Wilson, Republican from Vancouver. They are unelected and unaccountable to the public. Doglio said costs could end up being reduced by the change as more people are looking for natural gas alternatives. Sure thing. The council is expected to debate expanding the ban to cover most residential properties later this year. This state Give me a break. The people have no say in this state over anything. And the environmental psychos in Oregon can't seem to make up their mind if they want electric cars or want to protect sage grouse. The flat open areas where sage grouse congregate during mating season wear wooden stakes marking where mining companies may one day scrape away this crucial habitat to get at the minerals contained in the cake-soft earth of the McDermott caldera. The old supervolcano straddling the state line is laced with some of the highest concentrations of lithium in the United States. Lithium is used to make batteries to store renewable energy and power electric vehicles. Lithium is very hard to find. But these environmentalists don't want any mining done here because of the sage grouse. So what's it going to be? Electric cars or sage grouse? Electric cars and good paying jobs where they are needed desperately, or sage grouse? My money is on the sage grouse when it comes to Oregon politics. The U.S. is heavily reliant on foreign imports of raw materials used in batteries, including lithium. So it's also okay to dig giant holes in the earth in other countries and pollute those countries to get what we need to make our batteries. But that also leaves the supply chain and thus the country's transition off fossil fuels vulnerable to geopolitical conflicts like the U.S. trade war with China and Russia's war in the Ukraine. We need to be self-reliant in this country. When are people going to learn to stop relying on foreign countries to provide us with everything? And Oregon has made national news with its Menstrual Dignity Act, an Oregon law that will place menstrual products in every restroom in all K-12 schools statewide starting this fall. This is to provide equity for all kids. So it also says that it talks about, kids that can't afford to get menstrual products, and I completely understand that. But they put tampon dispensers next to the urinal in the boys' bathroom. And I know in Oregon boys and girls don't exist, but this is just another one of these emotional, feel-good laws of the woke. I feel sorry for boys that go to school in Oregon. Demarius Parada, National Programs Director for Period, reinforces that the bill doesn't impose people to use their products. It just increases access so the people who need them can use them. There's always a wave of change. The more we talk about the fact that people menstruate, no, girls and women menstruate, females menstruate, men don't. Can we just admit that? Can we just admit the science, the biology of the thing? And in California, the drought situation is worsening, yet new figures show that in March, water usage jumped nearly 19% compared with 2020 during one of the driest months on records. The startling figures come despite pleas from the state's governor, Gavin Newsome, and other authorities who have urged residents to curb their water usages. They also come the same day that the Los Angeles mayor ordered residents and businesses to restrict outdoor watering to just 2 days a week in an effort to conserve. The first 3 months of 2022 have been some of the driest ever recorded. Water use increased slightly in January and February before exploding in March when compared to 2020 figures. Californians averaged 77 gallons a person a day in March, an 18.9% increase from March 2020. It's the most water Californians have used in March since the middle of the previous drought in 2015. In Los Angeles, they are talking about limiting people to water to irrigate their yards. They'll be assigned days based on their address and will only be allowed to water for 8 minutes. Or, for those with more efficient sprinkler systems, 15 minutes. Users who don't comply may face fines after an initial warning. Is it possible that some of these cities will just shut people's water off if it gets too bad for certain periods of time and you only have water during certain hours of the day? Is that where this is headed? Why doesn't California use desalination plants and get ocean water? There's plenty of it there. And like Washington, California is saying new homes built in California starting in 2026 need to be powered by all electric furnaces, stoves, and other appliances if California is to meet its ambitious climate change goals over the next 2 decades, according to a state pollution reduction plan released Tuesday. The roadmap by the California Air Resources Board sets the state on a path to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045, meaning as much carbon is removed from the air as is emitted. The state's timeline is among the most ambitious in the nation. Hawaii has a similar goal, and some other states have a 2050 deadline. California could reach its goals through a drastic transition away from fossil fuels that power cars, trucks, planes, ships, homes, businesses, and other sectors of the economy. The board staff recommends the state cut the use of oil and gas by 91% by 2045 and use technology to capture and store carbon emissions from remaining sources. These are very unrealistic goals. And my guess is the state's electrical capacity won't even support this. But who cares about having actual plans in place before making switches like this, right? That's the Democrat way. This has been Pacific Northwest Headline News. For more, visit BehindTheLinePodcast.com. Thanks for listening.